I would like to start this video off with a warning, because usually, with the exception of some language sometimes, my videos are generally pretty G-rated, and because we're going to be talking about American Horror Story today, some of the content might not be suitable for all viewers. So if you pre-know that some of the content in American Horror Story freaks you out or scares you, there is a chance that I might talk about it, and I would rather you just not watch this video than freak yourself out. There's my warning. Also, in case if it wasn't super obvious, this video is going to be very, very spoilery, so watch with caution. So American Horror Story has been a show that I really loved since the first time I saw Murder House, the first season. But I don't get FX here, so I always have to wait till it comes out some other way to watch it. But regardless, it is really good, and there's been a lot of growth in the show and the characters and some of the recurring actors throughout the entirety of its run. So what I wanted to do today was kind of do a review video, and a review in the sense that this is my opinion, this is what I think, these are my favorite things, my least favorite things in each season. Yeah. So the first season of American Horror Story is called Murder House, and essentially it's this family that moves into a really haunted, scary house. That is the most generic way I can say it. Honestly, up until this most recent rewatch of all of American Horror Story, I've been living under the pretense that Asylum, the second season, was my least favorite season, but I think I had to change it to the first season. I think Murder House is my least favorite season, which makes sense. I mean, the show was brand new, it was still kind of getting its footing, still kind of learning what it could do and what it couldn't do, but in comparison to the rest of the seasons, it's just not my favorite. It's a little bit generic. You know what I mean? It's this nice white family who moves cross-country for a fresh start, and they move into a haunted house. Like, how many times have we seen that be done? And on top of that, the Harmons themselves are a very, very annoying family. They just whine a lot. All of them. So, in comparison to the other seasons, not my favorite. But that being said, that does not mean that there are not some fantastic characters and some fantastic scenes in this season. My favorite scene, I would say easily the most powerful scene in this whole season, is the Halloween night scene where Adelaide, played by Jamie Brewer, is screaming at her mom, Constance Langdon, who is played by Jessica Lange, about how she wants to be a pretty girl for Halloween.
I want to be a pretty girl!
Well, you're not a pretty girl! And you know it!
I want to be!
Oh, put her in a home, they said, even Daddy, but no, I couldn't do that.
I don't want to be Snoopy! I want to be a pretty girl!
Do you know what they think when we walk down the street? There, but for the grace of God go I. You make them feel lucky. And they think I'm a hero, as though I've had some choice.
And it's a very powerful, emotional scene, and it's extremely well acted by both of them, that it's like one of those scenes that makes you stop and go, whoa. The role of ultimate villain in this season, for me, goes to Ben Harmon, the dad, because honestly, he's just so annoying. It's this very cookie-cutter story of, the dad in the family who swears he's a good guy, he's a nice guy, he's a great dad, but, he slept with one of his students, and then he was kind of vague about his boundaries with her, and then she went a little nuts. I can't really blame her for that, and then it all just spirals out of control, and he continues this, farce that he's a good guy, and it's just really frustrating. I honestly, in my opinion, he is more of a villain in the season than any of the other people who, actually kill people. Tate Langdon is a fan favorite role for Evan Peters. Now, I have my own sort of other problems with Tate, and I will explain them a little bit later when we talk about Dandy and Freak Show, but I understand where it comes from, because Tate does have his occasional cute, sappy lines, and it's a really cool character. It's a really cool role for Evan Peters to play. And Evan Peters does a fantastic job, and I've seen Evan Peters in interviews, and he seems like such a nice guy. And Tate is a really cool character for him. But do I think Tate is drool-worthy for these schoolgirls? No, and I'm scared for them. But more on that later. Moving on to Season 2, American Horror Story Asylum. Asylum is actually really good. I don't give it enough credit, because there is one overall plot point in Asylum that I hate, and I actually have a hard time looking past it sometimes when I think about and talk about this season, and it is aliens. The rest of the season all fits together, and it's all so cohesive, and it's set in the early 60s, so it all is so well put together, and then aliens, they're just thrown in, and it honestly 90% of the time in this story, the way that the aliens play out, it just makes no freaking sense, and I just hate it. I think if they were going to go with aliens, they could have incorporated into a different season and a different theme, but it's just, it always feels disconjointed. Disconjointed, is it a word? It always feels like it doesn't belong in Asylum, is what I'm trying to say. I'd like to give a special shout out to one of the unsung heroes of American Horror Story, and that is Frances Conroy. You hear a lot about Jessica Lange and Sarah Paulson and Evan Peters, the ones who have been there since the very beginning, but I often feel like Frances Conroy gets left out. She's such a phenomenal actress, and she's so beautiful, and I saw her in 6 Feet Under as well recently. If you watch my videos, you know that I really enjoyed that show. And the thing about Frances Conroy is she's got that very, like, motherly, sweet vibe about her. She can be a little rough around the edges a little bit in some of her characters, but there's always that underlying sweetness about her. Like, look at Moira in Murder House. Definitely has that about her. Myrtle Snow in Coven, a little bit more eccentric than Frances Conroy's characters usually are, but she's like Cordelia's mom. And then, especially in the 4th season, she is Dandy's mom. She always gets that kind of sweet character, which is why I think she gets kind of forgotten about sometimes, because people love the strong, tough characters, and I'm the same way. I will always root for Jessica Lange and Sarah Paulson, because they usually get the really hard-hitting characters. It's just not Frances's style. But in Asylum, she's given a really, really awesome opportunity. She plays the Angel of Death, and that is one of her, like, sweet, mothery type roles. But then, in, like, 1 episode or 2 episodes, she plays this, like, really tough bad guy, murderer, patient at Briarcliff, and it is just such a 180 switch for her. Like, she changes her voice in a way that I didn't even know that she could, because I've never seen her do it like that before, and she's scary. She just, I can't even talk about Frances Conroy enough. I wish I had more examples of Frances Conroy being that kind of tough character, because she does it really well, and I wish we got to see more of it than just this little tiny blip in Asylum, but that, like, makes it for me. I'm just like, I love her.
Me and my girls just got transferred in from County.
I didn't call for you.
Well, I need an appointment to see Your Highness. Get her royalty. Queen Bee, I saw her here.
You don't belong here.
Yeah, that's what I told the judge. He disagreed. Hell, most of my so-called victims were living off government checks anyway. Sponges. They'd spend their dole on liquor and gambling before I'd ever see a rent check. I thought I was doing the taxpayer a service.
James Cromwell is another fantastic actor who was actually in 6 Feet Under with Frances Conroy, and this is his only appearance in American Horror Story thus far, and he plays Dr. Arthur Arden, who was actually a Nazi before, and he does a fantastic job. I'm used to seeing James Cromwell as, like, a nice guy in other things, and this one he's, like, crazy and scary, and he's doing human mutations, and he's a really scary guy. And it's cute because he's got this almost crush, but I think it's supposed to be, like, an innocent crush on the character of Sister Mary Eunice. Now, the actress Lily, she's in all the seasons as well, less so in Freak Show, so she's only in there for like 5 seconds. But Sister Mary Eunice is actually my favorite of her characters, because a nun possessed by the devil is, like, one of the coolest ideas for a character ever. So she's got that really, really wholesome sweetness about her in the very beginning, where she won't even take a bite of a candy apple. And then by the end of Mary Eunice's storyline, we're getting into some really, really freaking crazy shit. It's just really good to see Arthur's reaction to her, like, change and sort of morph the way it does, but then it's even cooler to see her go from so great to, like, so bad. And just, even between just the two of them, they have a fantastic character arc, but the best character arc of Asylum goes to Jessica Lange. Out of all of her characters, this one is the coolest, I would say, because she goes from being a sort of promiscuous lounge singer to a nun, to a patient at a mental institution, and then at the very end she becomes kind of like a surrogate grandmother to Kit's kids. Yeah. And true to Jessica Lange character, she's very strong. She's constantly talking about taking down the patriarchal male, and it's just really fun to watch characters like that, because you're like, yes, I love you, this is what I wanted. Ultimate villain in this season goes to Monsignor Timothy, because he is just the worst. Talk about a literal piece of shit. Okay, so here's what's up. My least favorite thing on the planet is hypocrites. If you're gonna be a bad person, if you're gonna do bad things, at least own it. At least be like, yeah, I'm an asshole. Take it or leave it. But Timothy likes to parade around like he is a saint. Like, he wants to save people and be this fantastic human. But in reality, all he wants to do is climb the ladder and eventually get to become Pope, because he wants to be Pope. It's got nothing to do with saving people. Look at the shit that goes on at Briarcliff. He is the Monsignor of Briarcliff. If he wanted to change it, if he wanted to improve conditions at Briarcliff, he could do it like that. And he doesn't. He just turns a blind eye constantly. He approves Arthur's human experiments. He doesn't ever look at them clearly, because when he finally finds Shelley, he's totally freaked out. But he approves these human experiments of Arthur killing patients, essentially. And he just lets it happen, and that's not ethical, and that's not right. And he's just hoping that, you know, if Arthur discovers some kind of cure for something, or whatever the end goal actually is, that, you know, he'll use it to rise to become Pope, and that's all that matters. And he never gave a shit about Sister Jude, and he never gave a shit about Sister Mary Eunice. They were just steps on his climb. And it is that kind of self-righteous but assholey, hypocritical character that I cannot stand. And there are, like, people in this show who actually physically murder other people. I guess he did murder at least one person, but there are people in this American Horror Story bunch that actually full out murder people, and I'm just like, okay, cool. And I do not hate them even half as much as I hate him. Season 3, American Horror Story Coven, is my favorite season. It's my favorite because it's got such a large and, like, diverse in personality-wise female cast, you know what I mean? And it's about witches, so, like, how can you not love it, you know what I mean? Diverse female cast of witches. Hello, talk about a recipe for success. I can imagine that the role of Myrtle Snow would have been a lot of fun for Frances Conroy to play, because it's kind of got that same thing that she often does, that sort of mothery sense, but she's just so eccentric, and she's so fascinating, and she's got that giant hair. I can see that being a lot of fun to play, to just really ham it up, you know. And I love Myrtle Snow. The character of Myrtle is just so ridiculous that I feel like nobody watches Coven and goes, ew, like, why is she there? Because she's fun. She's almost like the comic relief sometimes. Coven also adds Kathy Bates and Angela Bassett to the cast, which is, like, the best thing American Horror Story could ever do, because, hello, Kathy Bates and Angela Bassett are, like, two of the biggest names ever. They're both just so, especially, like, for me personally, I think of Kathy Bates, I think of, like, all these big movies, like Titanic, and then it's like, no, she's an American Horror Story, and it's just so different for her, especially the character. And Angela Bassett is one of my favorite characters in the season, because as Marie Laveau, she's the voodoo queen, right? She can be kind of out there sometimes, but she's also very, like, fun and very spiritual and very protective of her group, and I don't know, like, there's just so much about Marie Laveau that I really like, and I almost can't even put it into words, because she's not in the show as much as I wish she was. But every time you see her, she says something awesome, or she does something awesome. She's just a fantastic character. But without a doubt, my favorite character in American Horror Story Coven and in all of American Horror Story is Fiona Good, Jessica Lange's character in Coven.
I'm Fiona Good. I'm in charge everywhere.
Now, the thing about Fiona Good is that it's almost like I love her for her selfishness. I love her for her toughness and her, like, ability to survive. You know, she killed the last Supreme so that she could become Supreme. And it's just, there's just so much selfishness. And I think, not that selfishness is a positive trait, but I think so many people like to be like, you have to give everything to everyone else, that people forget that you need to put yourself first. And she obviously takes it to an extreme, but I just think it's so good. She's such a good leader when she's there, you know. She's tough, and she's hard on them, and she's cunning, and she's smart, and she's clever, and she's tricky, and she can be kind of manipulative, but only when she needs to be. And self-preservation is her number one thing, and I just love Fiona. The unfortunate thing about Fiona Good's storyline, which I often forget even happens, because it's like, I block it out, like it's a traumatic event, but is when they introduce the Axeman. Now, the Axeman comes into the story in, like, episode 4 or 5, so it's decently early, and basically, she just, like, is swept out of the house and is in this, like, weird sort of romantic relationship with the Axeman for the rest of the show. And eventually she comes back and she teams up with Marie Laveau to get rid of the witch hunters, and then it becomes badass again. But for that whole section in the middle when she's with the Axeman, it just breaks my heart, because we had such good momentum going with her, where she was becoming such a good leader, and she was going to scare these young witches into being smart and to being, you know, good witches, and then we just kind of lose it in some kind of pointless romantic subplot. I understand that Fiona's supposed to be a selfish character, so it makes sense that she would leave the coven all of a sudden to go run off and be in love and that sort of thing, but I hate it. I hate it so much. I wish it didn't happen. And I also have to say, as much as I love Coven, and it really sounds like I don't because I'm just talking about stuff that I don't like, I do disagree with Cordelia being the Supreme in the end, because I don't know, like, I get it that she's blood, so really it makes the most sense, and she's being all selfless the whole time, not even considering herself, but it would have been really fun to see, like, Queenie become Supreme, because then she can almost join what's left of the, you know, the people who are more with voodoo, and, you know, the Coven people. She can be the thing that pulls them together. Or it would have been even more awesome to have Nan become the Supreme, because Nan the whole show consistently was like gaining more powers and getting stronger and being better, and like she takes out Patty LaPone, for crying out loud. No one can do that. And it's just really upsetting that out of all the other characters for the most part die and come back, and she just dies in like the dumbest way for like no real good reason, and she doesn't come back. Like, it just felt really pointless that they built up Nan to be so cool, and then she was just like, okay, bye, we're done.
She's innocent. Mostly. She killed the neighbor, but the bitch had it coming.
Now, the most recent season of American Horror Story is Freak Show. Now, the cool thing about Freak Show is I had to wait till it was done airing to watch it, right? And at least with the other seasons, I had been, like, some things had been ruined for me from, like, Twitter or Tumblr or what have you. But in Freak Show, nothing had been ruined for me because, for the most part, everybody seemed to hate it. All the fans seemed like they were all together in their hatred of Freak Show, and I didn't ever really see any plot. It was just lots of people just being like, I hate this. And so I went into this kind of thinking, maybe I won't like it. But I loved Freak Show. Freak Show was so good all the way through. Everything fit together so nicely. It had that really cute tie-in to Asylum with Pepper. And I don't know. I really don't understand where all the hate is coming from, because it was really good. And I like that a lot of the like scary stuff in Freak Show wasn't anything I had ever seen anywhere else before. I watched a lot of the behind-the-scenes sort of interviews and whatnot for Freak Show before I watched it. And a lot of the actors, like the actors that had been hired to play the freaks in the Freak Show, were talking about what a great opportunity this was for them to help them break into acting and that sort of thing. So that already built this like feeling of love in it for me, because it wasn't like, oh, you're a freak, come star in this show about freak shows. It was like, this is a great opportunity, this is a great way for me to break into the industry. And I get that, because I would hope in my perfect world that they could use something like Freak Show to get into the industry, and then eventually they could play characters that it doesn't matter if you don't have legs. The story isn't changed because you don't have legs. You know what I mean? It can be a love story and she's just, you know, walking around on her hands. That would be my perfect world, where it doesn't have to center around the person's disability. I'm hoping that with Freak Show that could help do that for the actors in it someday. There's also a really great opportunity for Sarah Paulson. I really hope she wins the Emmy for this, because she does a fantastic job as Dot and Bet. I'm not entirely sure how they even did it. I know that I've seen pictures of her with like a prosthetic head of hers attached to her body, so I'm assuming she had to like act one part and then like switch and act the other part. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but the still shots is where it really gets me, because Dot and Bet are very clearly the same person, but just the whole face is different. Like, they have such different demeanors about them so extremely. Like, that is really quality, solid acting. She knocks it out of the park in this one. So good. Now, I mentioned earlier that I was going to wait to talk about Tate till I got to Dandy. Well, here we are. Now, here's the thing about Tate and Dandy. They are terrifying. They are both so fucked. I am genuinely scared for people who are attracted to them as characters. It's totally different if you're attracted to the actors and like you see the actors in interviews and stuff, but the people who are like, I love Tate, I want to marry Tate. Or even worse, people who are like, I love Dandy, I want to marry Dandy. What? I'm so scared for you. I'm so scared. It actually like really worries me, because Tate can say his couple of cute lines to Violet. I get that. That's okay. But it does not change the fact that Tate raped Violet's mom. The reason Tate is dead is because he shot up his high school. Like, there are so many things against Tate that I have no idea how you can be attracted to Tate. And then Dandy. Dandy is even worse. Dandy's kill count is probably higher than Tate's. And Dandy does it all. Like, it's not that sort of brooding, upset, that I can't believe I did this thing. Dandy is like, this is probably technically wrong, but I want to do it because it's fun to me, so we're going to do it anyway. We are going to shoot my mom. We're going to shoot the maid. We're going to shoot everybody in the damn freak show because they had the balls to stand up to me. And Dandy is easily one of the most terrifying characters I have ever seen. In all the movies I've ever seen, Dandy scares me the most. And there were points in Freak Show where I actually had to like sit back like this. And if by chance you are watching this video and you're like, I'm never going to watch American Horror Story, I just want to hear Abby talk about it, you should know that Dandy kills his mother and then takes a bath in her blood.
And that's when I discovered the power of bathing in blood.
This is fresh blood from some lovely ladies I killed earlier today. Pay attention, Regina!
I cannot begin to tell you how it felt.
This is what I'm saying, and there are people out there who are like, I just love Dandy, he's so cute, and he's so Dandy. I'm like, stop! Now, I can't blame the way Dandy is on anybody other than just the way Dandy is, but I do have to admit that Frances Conroy's character in that season, she plays his mom, she definitely doesn't help. It's very coddling, she helps cover his mistakes, and I can't help but feel like maybe if she had got him the help that he needed earlier on, then he wouldn't be as scary as he is now. But she dies, so it doesn't matter. Elsa Mars is Jessica Lange's character in Freak Show, and she's a really fun character, you know, she's like very German, and Jessica Lange does the German accent very well, and she's a typical Jessica Lange character in the sense that she's very strong, and I can't help but feel like Elsa Mars is sort of the combination of the rest of Jessica Lange's American Horror Story characters, which is cute because this is her last season, right? Last season as a main character, at least. But it definitely feels like they took Constance, and they took Sister Jude, and they took Fiona, and they put them all together and threw in a little bit of German, and this is what we got. She's, you know, very confident and sassy and can be kind of scary to get what she wants, like Fiona. She's, you know, reaching for the stars, climbing up to the silver screen like Constance wanted to do, but she's definitely got that really secret ballsy thing that Sister Jude had. Fiona has it too, but Fiona wears it more on her sleeve, whereas Sister Jude's was a little more buried down. Twisty was the one thing in this season that I was really worried going into it that I was going to be scared of. Ended up being scared of Dandy, but Twisty is the scary clown. And I'm not one of those people who sees a clown and is immediately screaming and crying, but I don't like them. I don't like them. But Twisty is not even in the show very long, and when he's in the show, he's really not that scary. They didn't do Twisty in a very scary way, honestly. So if that's what's stopping you from watching a Freak Show, it's not so bad, I promise. Unless you're immobilized by fear of clowns, Twisty's really not that scary. The most powerful scene in American Horror Story Freak Show actually did make me cry. And let me tell you, it takes a lot to make me cry. And it is the scene that connects Freak Show to Asylum. It is the scene where Elsa Mars takes Pepper to Pepper's sister and lets her go and says goodbye, and it's Pepper and Elsa Mars saying goodbye, and I was just a weepy mess because Pepper doesn't totally understand what's going on, and Elsa's really sad, and oh, that scene is just really hard to watch. But then it's fun because they do the time jump and it shows her at Briar Cliff meeting Sister Mary Eunice, and she pulls out a little magazine and it's got Elsa Mars on it, and it's really cute. And that was one of my favorite little things in Freak Show, was that if they were going to tie anything between two seasons, I was really happy that it was Pepper. So yeah, this video was already kind of longer than I intended it to be, so I'm going to shut up now. If there was anything else you wanted me to talk about with regards to American Horror Story, you can just ask me below and I'll tell you. I'm really looking forward to Hotel this year, even though we're going to be losing a Jessica Lange, we're going to be gaining a Lady Gaga and a bunch of other people, so I really have high hopes. I still think it'll be good. Thank you so much for watching my video, and I will see you next time. Bye!